Hey y'all, welcome back to the Inner. Today I'm joined by my brother, Jamar Milton.
Peace.
Ankamat.
Peace. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm excited to be here.
I'm
Yes.
excited to have you. If you could introduce yourself a bit for the audience.
Brother Jamaar Milton, Reni Abu Ma'akeru. I am a Kemetic priest at the Shrine of Ma'at, musical artist, hip hop artist, songwriter, composer, uh, actor, celebrity, mentor, all of the above. Your brother.
Cool.
Yeah.
So kind of give us, you got a bunch of different starts because you wear a lot of different hats, but kind of walk us through your spiritual journey. How did you get into Kemeticism? I'm assuming you started in Christianity like the rest of us. What was
Absolutely.
that journey and transition for you?
Well, I'm a son of two ordained ministers. So I was raised in the church for the majority of my life growing up, and transitioned from there over into Kemetic spirituality. Just from delving more into Christianity is what led me here. It really wasn't about just being defiant or rebellious, like some people may be. For me, it was I wanted to prove everything that was in the Bible was true. And that's how I ended up, for the most part. That was the seed that was planted. I would say that led me here. Near death experiences, things of that nature, traumatic experiences. It kind of unlocks DNA, as we've seen in the past with many individuals. And that's how I came here. I always tell people you come here by two ways, by choice or by trauma. Mine was a little bit of both. Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember I talked to you before, and you were telling me that because I had asked you, I was like, "Have you ever had any encounters with the Netaru?" And you said, "Well, when I had my near-death experience, I pretty much met them all."
Mhm. Yeah.
Talk about
Because
that a little bit.
what you realize is, the closer you get to death, the more you realize how much power you actually have. You're going to spend more time dead than you will alive. And once we swallow that concept, we can also see why the ancient Kemites did what they did. Why they chose to live in small little huts and houses, and but their tombs were large and immaculate because they knew the afterlife was way more important. And many religions have taken that same concept and ran with it. But ultimately, it comes down to what's more important to you in this life, how you can use it in this lifetime, and to help others in the same token. It's not just about using it as a springboard for wealth and riches, as we've seen many people do, but it also can be a tool and a great spiritual guide for many of us. And that's what it's become for me ultimately. And I think that's what's become magnetic, and why the energy is the way that it is. For those who follow my walk and my journey, it's been very genuine and authentic. People have watched me from the time I was on the stoop, just thinking about this and the connection that I was feeling to these people, all the way up into getting my DNA test done and my genetic testing and seeing that I have a lineage with these people, and all the way over to traveling to ancient Kemet and finding my tribe. When you start to see your tribe and people who have your face on their body, that's a whole different wave. I don't think we realize how diverse we are as Black African people, or African people of diaspora, whatever we call yourself, melanated beings. I don't think we realize how diverse we are, and that there are people who look exactly like you. It's one thing to talk about ethnicity, nationality, and then there's another thing to talk about tribalism, to where everyone looks exactly like you. And for me, that was groundbreaking. Yeah.
So I heard you mention the word energy earlier.
Hmm.
You just got back from Kemet. How
Yes.
was that?
Oh man, this past experience in Kemet was, I had been one time before, but this one was much more in depth. We traveled from Cairo all the way down to Aswan, where I met my tribe, the Nubians of Aswan, and getting there was the culmination of my life experience here on planet Earth thus far. Um, I have never seen anything like that, or experienced or felt anything like that energy wise in my entire life up until now. Through all the walks of life that I've been through all the ups and downs, through all the experiences, the highs and the lows, I've never experienced that type of energy before, and I've never been able to contain and capsulize that energy and be able to bring it home, and be able to spread it. And I think that that's what was monumental for this trip. It wasn't something that was just for me. I was also able to do a doula, a death doula ceremony for Lord Jamar from Brand Nubian for his father, and also as well as many other people. Of the other people that was on the trip with us, to send their people off down to the Nile River, and send their ashes off. So, being able to operate as a Kemetic priest in that manner, be able to use my body as a medium and a death doula, was an experience of energy that, I can say at this point, I've never seen it or felt it done in that way. So it was very, very new to me, very exciting at the same time, and it was fulfilling my priestly duties. So at the same time, and that's the only reason why I came into the priesthood. It wasn't to, intellectually masturbate or preach knowledge or anything like that. I wanted to go into the priesthood so that people like us who think like us and are on our frequency and NG wave band can bury our dead the way that we want to see fit, and bury ourselves the way that we want to see fit. Because the biggest tragedy for me would be to reach this level of ascension and have to be buried, no disrespect, but have to be buried under a cross or in a church or someplace where it doesn't agree with my soul. Yeah.
That's deep. So I want to get into the priesthood, but before we go there, I remember I saw some of the photos. You were out there with Baba Mfundishi for a bit.
Yeah, the elder.
How long was the Kemet trip altogether? It seems like y'all was out there for a minute.
10 days.
About 10 days.
Yeah, we were 10 days. The content that I took could last for the rest of the year, though. But we were there for 10 days, and I understood the assignment when I was going, because the last time that I went, I knew what I had saw, and I regretted not being able to take and document as much as I could have. When you don't, even me as a teacher, I brought 100 people out there with me, but at the same time, you want to go with an elder. You know what I'm saying? I always believe in, you always want to have somebody that you're following, people that are on your level, and then also people that you're teaching. Right. So this trip, I wanted to make sure that I handle all of those benchmarks, and it was fulfilling. There were things that I was able to fill for my following and my flock, and also I was able to learn. And it's good for teachers to be able to sit at the foot of the elders and things of that nature. They're literally walking libraries. So if you've ever been around Mfundishi, more than likely, if you pull up on him, he's probably going to be reading a book. 9 times out of 10, that's what you're going to catch him doing. So with him, the experience was much more fulfilling. I had a lot of questions answered, and being able to see things first eye account puts you in a different space. When you're having different discussions or debates or whatever it is, or builds, people want you to source up, and there's no source like your own 2 eyes, seeing it for yourself. And having someone such as powerful as Mfundishi explain to you what it is that you're looking at. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people have gone to the pyramids, but they had no idea what they're looking at. They had no idea what the Medunetta is saying, no idea what the ancestors were trying to tell us for so long. So, that's what made the trip all that much worth it. And I advise anybody that's going to go to make sure that you go with a master teacher and not just go as a tourist.
Yeah. Do you already like speak and read Medunetta fluently?
Fluently, no. So what I do, I can actually take a passage and break it down, with my tools that I have, the different books that I have. Let the Ancestors Speak is a good book. Egyptian Grammar by Budge is a good book that I highly advise everyone get. These are collegiate level books. But most scholars don't speak it fluently. They're able to take the passage and decipher the passage by way of the text, by using different things. There's a handful of scholars that I know that can speak it, and they usually speak key phrases that they've memorized, versus actually just you give them a passage and then they just read it straight through. That's a very challenging task to do, because it's a language that's not being spoken every day. where you can bounce it back off of people and continuously use it. You know what I'm saying? It's not that it's dead. It's just not no longer in the land of the living as we use it today. But we do know how to read the meta and decipher it.
Yeah, because that's been my standpoint, is that before I actually go, I want to be able to at least read some of it
Yeah.
to know what I'm looking at a little bit.
Absolutely. So some of the basic things and the things that could really get you started is first being able to read the pictures, and that's what I'm masterful at. That was something that was gifted to me. That was gifted to me by the ancestors. Before I took any meta class, I was able to teach from that standpoint, because it is kind of like Pictionary, but you have to understand African lifestyle to understand exactly what they're trying to tell you symbolically. Most
Yeah.
of it is symbolic. So if you understand the living of African people, it's very, very easy to understand even for the lay. But then when you start getting into the depth of it, when you start reading doctoral notes, because there's different levels of glyphs. You know, there's stuff that's meant for the doctors, something that's meant for judicial systems and lawyers. There's some stuff that's meant for royals, and there's stuff that's meant for the lay. You know, it's all different levels of the Meduneta. Many people don't know that, demonic text, things of that nature. So knowing how to read the different levels is crucial. But mostly anybody just getting started can look at the pictures. If you know basic glyphs, you can tell what they're trying to tell you and what they're trying to illustrate symbolically, and it's a lot of fun. It's kind of like Pictionary a little bit, with just a little bit more knowledge consciously.
Yeah. I've heard people equate our modern use of emojis to the Medu Netter, saying that
Absolutely.
it kind of revived itself.
Absolutely. It's our natural way of being able to read. You know, letters, the letter system came about way later, and they used the Medunetta to create letters. But prior to that, things were seen pictorially. So, you know, that's an easier way to illustrate. You know, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. And that stands to this day. You know, people would rather watch a movie or a video than they would rather read a book, because you know the book is filled with spells. You know, I'm not against books, but I do know that there is a higher way and a quicker, more efficient way of learning, and that is a firsthand account through your eyes, by pictures or by watching it, seeing it done. And naturally, us people of African descent, the indigenous people of the world, that's how we first learned. It's already programmed into us. We learn by seeing and by doing. Children will learn that way. They learn by watching you. They do as you do, not as you say necessarily. So, you know, that's something to think about in terms of moving forward. You know, a lot of scholars will try to I would say, speak to you condescendingly or even downplay your scholarship because you haven't read 1,000 books. But that does not take anything away from your experience and what you've been through. Experience is way more valuable, even as an employer. You know, an employer will take someone who's been doing the work and seeing the work and doing the work every day before they will hire someone fresh out of college who read a whole lot of books about the job. They will take
Yeah.
someone with the experience. 1 year of experience is 4 years of college. You know, so understanding that is key.
Yeah. Speaking of that hands-on stuff, you recently completed your priesthood training. Talk about that. What was it? 3-4 years of priesthood training?
Yeah, it was 4 years at
Yeah.
the Shrine of Ma'at under Head and Tepe, Jabari Osaze and Anika Osaze. You know, we started during 2020. So that was a challenge in itself. And I'm actually grateful for that, because we didn't get the experience that most would, you know, face to face. We had to do a lot of it online, which was very, very challenging. We were a different group because we started off in person and then we had to segue into like an online presence. So that kind of geared me towards where the future is kind of going with the online movement of learning, you know. And you know, our experience was super informative, and it took me someplace spiritually that I would not have been able to reach on my own. So I'm super grateful for that, to be accredited in that way, and to be able to administer services on behalf of our people, to move forward and to be able to walk into the spiritual aspect of this with authenticity.
Yeah. So, what would you say is the function or the duty of a priest specifically within the Kemetic culture? Because
Mhm.
usually, when people hear the word priest, our first picture of that is like the Catholics.
Yes. Normally, we would picture like a pastor in our mind, or some sort of minister, like we see with other religions and things of that nature. But we have to understand that the Kemetic African spirituality in this walk is not a religion. So the Kemetic priest, their main duty is first and foremost to be able to uphold the knowledge, to be able to retain the knowledge and understand the knowledge of the Kemetic people and their ways of the ancient African people. So a lot of it was historic based, learning the history of what the Kemetic priests did, tending to the temple, tending to the shrine, things of that nature is big in being in the priesthood. Also, learning different ways of divinity, because we are the mothership of all religions. Every ritual that you see that's being done in most religions was taken from out of Kemet. If you look at even Vodun, if you look at voodoo and things of that nature, that's no different from a Catholic priest. They're just in the woods. They're doing the same things: air, fire, wind, and water. Lighting candles, alcohol, the different things that they use of divinity. They're doing the same exact things. They're just in the woods. So understanding those aspects and the relationships between the two. The relationships between Ifa and Kemetic spirituality, learning those different things, how a lot of these are sisters of the same walk of life, brothers and sisters and their relatives of the same walk of life, same deities, just different names and attributed to different places of where they lived. It gave us a good broad understanding as to all the different religions and how they tied in, and what our role is as far as helping to keep this together so that everyone understands that we're more alike than we are different.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I was able to pull out of it, because going into it, I was I have to say I was in a really dark space as far as religion when you're walking out of it. You know what I'm saying? But ultimately, it helped me to understand why people choose certain religions, and how even certain religions are helpful for some people, to move them to their next epoch before they go to the next level. It's levels, So that's another main role. And another role is helping servitude, helping people to move into their next space. We are required, when someone reaches out and they ask questions and things of that nature, to answer their questions, to help them. You know what I'm saying? Not to intellectually masturbate and always try to debate, people, things of that nature, but help them to move in that space, meet people where they're at, and uphold the laws of Ma'at, the negative confessions of Ma'at. That's major key in the Kemetic spiritual walk, and helping people to reach that level of practice. That's pretty much the gist of a Kemetic priest. It's not like a church where you meet us every Sunday and we take your money.
Yeah.
It's definitely not. The temples and the shrines in Africa were not churches or places of worship per se. They were schools.
Yeah.
To get into a shrine or a temple, you would have to sit outside sometimes for a number of years. The Kemetic priest will come out, ask you a few questions. Depending upon how you answer those questions, will determine whether you even get to the first level of the sanctum. Walking through those temples and getting as far into the Holy of Holies was a 33 to 40-year journey, which is where we get Freemasonry from. You see, it wasn't something that you could just, okay, you're going to take a class and now you walk right in here. No, you had to show it in practice by thought, word, and deed before you can get into the inner sanctum or the Holy of Holies, which I showed people. Only the king and the priest was able to go into that inner sanctum. You know what I mean? So being able to reach that level of knowledge in this, for me, is the pinnacle of my entire research and my entire career.
Yeah. See, I don't want to focus too much on Christianity, but you said something that made me think of when you mentioned that a lot of the temples were schools.
Yes.
It reminds me about how in America, especially within the last 100 years, a lot of people went to church because that was the only place they were allowed to learn.
That's right.
In our community. I've
That's
even
right.
heard it said that churches where Black people went to be somebody.
That's right. Sunday school.
Yeah.
Sunday school. Because if you weren't allowed to read, you were allowed to hear the word, however, being read, and that was usually from the Bible, under the tutelage and under the overseers. What's the word I'm looking for? surveillance rather, under their surveillance. So, that was our first encounter with school for Black people was the church. I recently just left from the museum, the African American History Museum in D.C. with Jabari Osaze, and I saw the first remnants of a spelling book. This is where we learn to cast spells. You know what I'm saying? And learn to spell. So, these were literally given to us in the churches. And that's not far from the exhibit of Nat Turner and his Bible. It was literally on the same row. So understanding that relationship is very, very important for Black people here in America.
So you mentioned Jabari. Talk about how did you end up coming to specifically the Shrine of Ma'at? There's like a ton. There's the Asaraset Society. There's this shrine, that shrine. How did you end up meeting Jabari?
So at the time of my real in-depth awakening, I was living in Connecticut at the time in Waterbury. And I was going online, regularly on a regular basis, and looking at lectures, things of that nature. Watching Sinetta television, different things like that, DVDs. Minister Farrakhan, everybody, Malcolm X. I was just, when you get in that rabbit hole and you become a sponge for knowledge, especially, it's like you're a child and you're just learning for the first time. You become very absorbent to it. So I was actively looking within that space for individuals who were showing us what the Kemetic walk looked like with a family, or if you had a spouse, because I had a family at the time, I had a newborn. So I was looking for that connection or that type of energy at least. And Jabari Osaze, he was actively showcasing that online, him and his wife relationship, things of that nature. So that's what kind of gravitated me towards him at first. And then I realized, how studious he was. I had been to college myself, and there were different things that I had learned. And his articulation of word and what he was talking about, his authenticity, is what drew me to that. So because of that, I ended up moving back to New York just to get closer to the shrine. That was my reason for leaving Connecticut. Ultimately, was to get back to New York so I can really hone in on my skills and practice my walk of life the way that I wanted to. Living in Waterbury, it was super like robotic, and I just couldn't get into a village the way that I wanted to, that I could in New York. I understood how many people were in New York that were spiritually connected, being closer to Harlem, being closer to the city, and being closer to more people that were like-minded. So, that's how I ended up at the Shrine of Ma'at. I paid a visit one day. I was like, one day I'm going to go and I'm going to check him out. And that's what I did. And immediately, as soon as I walked in, I was like, I felt like home. Like he'll probably tell you, like, that my first day there, I was crying. Like, you know what I mean? Because I knew that this is where I needed to be. And I saw the vision well before we got here today.
Okay, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
So continuing with the topic of spirituality, what does spirituality look like for you on a daily basis? What's your regular practice for engaging the spirit?
For first and foremost, a sun gaze, if I can, depending on the weather. It's a little tricky here in New York. It's hit or miss with the type of weather here in New York, and we have a lot of chemtrails. But ultimately, that's my first and foremost priority. Dealing with the elements, dealing with nature. Getting out. I have a dog now, so that kind of helps me too. I can make sure that I get up very, very early as I can, and get out in nature and connect. Tap in with the frequency grounding. I'm really big on that. Many people have saw me out during the eclipse, with no glasses, out there sun gazing, doing what I do. And first and foremost, I would say even before that, is my inner work, my shadow work, my diet. Trying to stay away from the beef and the meat and things of that nature, making sure that my gut is cleansed, utilizing water. I do hydrotherapy regularly to make sure that my gut is clear, because, people don't realize your gut is the first brain. Before anything reaches your mind, it goes into your gut. Any nutrients that you're getting is going to go there first. So one of the things that we did in the shrine, when we were initiating into the shrine, into the priesthood, is that we all had to take colonics. We all had to clean out our system, fasting regularly. That was something that I did. I did that involuntarily growing up. When I was broke, we would we wouldn't we would fast. We didn't have nothing to eat, right? So that wasn't very hard for me to do, was fasting. You know what I'm saying? And going without certain types of food and vices that hold you down. Fasting is not just about food. It's letting go of anything that no longer serves you. That's another thing that we have to understand. That's that's at the forefront, is always calculating that and calibrating that. I do a regular purge every single season, every single solstice or getting towards the solstice. I start to do a purge, and that's of everything: family members, friends, social media, networks, anything that's no longer serving me. I cut those ties and I cut those edges, and I'm always reassessing that. That's really big as far as spirituality. What you're surrounding yourself with, the energies you're surrounding yourself with. You have to constantly be gauging that, be conscious and aware of that, and be willing to upgrade that. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. It's very hard to do at first. We talk about it like letting things go, but we don't realize how hard that is when you've been doing it for decades, when you've been doing it for the majority of your life. The older that you are, the harder it becomes, right? So those things as well. And then also my ritualistic things, like tending to my altar, prayer to my ancestors, things of that, acknowledging their presence, saying their names, regularly invoking their spirit, and invoking the sahu of the ancestors that I never met, that is flowing through my veins, the opening of the way on a daily basis. These are the things that we do regularly to keep us in check. Also, the different things, amulets, and things that we keep around, little pieces of paraphernalia. These things are not only tools for the universe, but they're reminders. When we walk around with our Ankh, and you see us walking around with it, it's a charge. It keeps us reminded of who we are. The jewelry and stuff like this, these are things that we earn. Some of these, you can't even buy. You got to earn it. You know what I mean? Like different things like this, like you can't just buy this, from Baba Heru. You have to earn it. These are the different things that keep us reminded of who we are, so that we can walk in this every single day. And it's a challenge. No, this is not a road to perfection, like many religious groups might do. You know what I'm saying? It's really not about that. It's more about balance, what we call mayat. Living in the principles of mayat. So and there's a lot. There's 48 of them. So paying attention to those things is not an easy task to do on a daily basis. So keeping yourself reminded and keeping yourself in those spaces, however that may be, and it's not the same for everyone. Some people don't have to do the things that I do to stay engaged, and I don't have to do the things that some other people might do to stay engaged. Some people might find it in yoga, right? They might find it there. That's how they get their breath work and things of that nature going, right? I'm also an artist, right? So being a hip hop artist and things of that nature, I find writing and creating music is therapeutic for me and helps me stay in that space. When I have a song in my heart, when I have a song in my head that is giving me good, positive energy and keeping me engaged, it helps me to stay on that walk. So many people have seen that journey in my transition from the songs that I used to do up until now. And not that I don't do those songs ever again. I'm just aware, and I do things in balance now. You know what I'm saying? So that's really what it's about. It's constantly gauging that and trying to stay within a pocket of vibrancy and magnetism.
I like that. So one of the areas of, I guess you could say, mystery for some people is the Netteru.
Yes.
Because I've heard different arguments concerning the Netteru. I'm just curious what your angle is. Do you see the Netteru as just forces and principles and energy, or do you believe some of them were at some point historical figures?
I believe that the Netteru were forces of energy more than anything. Now, people will attribute them to people like we do today. I see Jesus in the same way, a force or energy that we turned into a derundable participle, where, we will, when we find something that is prominent, we will attribute our children to it, and we will name our children after it. And then it becomes flesher and in the living. But at first, everything, and this is laws of science, everything starts in the spiritual realm before it reaches the natural realm. So I believe that the Netteru, I know the Netteru were first attributes of thought, which turned into a physical aspect first on a quantum physical level, very, very small, very, very minute, before it manifested into a space where we can now acknowledge it collectively. There were no gods in Egypt. That was something that was created later on. And we kind of wrapped up the Neteru in the same aspect of a god, and they're not. They're simply not. We're talking aspects of science. Ra is not a god; it is an actual entity. It is the sun. Same thing. Nut, Geb, the earth and the sky. They are actual physical things, but not gods meant to be worshipped, but more of scientific principles of nature meant to be respected and revered. And I think that that's where we lose a lot of people, is when we associate Neteru with gods, living and breathing gods. Though they are living, and some of them may even be breathing, they are not gods. So the Neteru is something that we have to understand fully when we're going into Kemetic spirituality. When you're coming out of religion, it's very, very hard to shake that aspect. And it's very, very hard to not get drawn back into that aspect for the sake of appeasing others. Anytime we have that talk about God, it gets really, really crazy. It's like, okay, we don't believe in Jesus, but you got to keep God. You know what I'm saying? And it's hard to break people and shake people out of that. You know what I'm saying? That God was a creation as well. And we were here long before the word God was ever created. This is historical fact. So there's that.
Yeah, I like that. So, one of the things that you mentioned a bit earlier, and people tried to get me to talk about it, but that's not my area of expertise, which is the eclipse. What
Yes.
would you say is some of the spiritual applications or spiritual meanings behind an event like an eclipse?
Well, I would say in modern day times, it's the highest point in which we can actually sun gaze, because this is my personal studies from what I can bring to the table, is that when we're looking at an eclipse, we are actually seeing the sun for the first time. There is a white sun, there's a black sun. There's more than one sun. Anytime you're dealing with electromagnetic energy or anything of dealing with magnetism, if you're trying to make something spin or rotate, it has to have something of equal magnetic energy on the other side. Everything in this universe works in binary code: up, down, left, right, in, out, black, white.
Yeah.
So if you have a white one, you have to have a black one. And from my studies, we're actually seeing the black hole sun once every 30 some odd years, or 20 some odd. They say it's 20 some odd years. I'm going to take a shot at it and say it's 33 years. Okay. That we will experience this. Now, the black hole sun is essentially um, our first glimpse uh, at what we call Jesus. Jesus is the sun. Jesus dies for 3 days, and an eclipse is when the sun dies, essentially. And we were supposed to experience 3 days of darkness. Now, the powers that be was able to create an artificial light, CERN, and that's what they did during that. You can find videos of the black sun still covering the white sun, and you can see that it stayed there, and another light came out of nowhere from there, from out of there. So, from my contention and from my studies, is that um, they didn't want to spook everybody out for those 3 days. Many people experienced and they noticed that the light was different for the 3 days after the eclipse, and then the sunlight kind of went back to what it was. Here in New York, we experienced 3 days of very good weather, 3 days straight. Right after that, it's raining again. Before that, it was raining heavy. During the eclipse, clear skies, brighter than it was ever before, and then now we're back to this weather. So, and they also shot chemtrails in the sky to try to block it out so you couldn't see exactly what was going on, so during the eclipse, it's my contention is that that's what we were experiencing. We were seeing the black sun come into view, and then it goes out of view once it crosses over that 3-day period. Because you'll notice you don't see the moon. The moon was still being seen by many people on video, and you can see it. The moon was still in the sky further off on the opposite side. You could still see the moon. So if the moon is covering us to give us the eclipse, how are we seeing the moon over here? Like it just can't happen. Even one video negates that, and it's called a solar eclipse for a reason, because it's two suns. It's a solar eclipse, not a lunar eclipse, a solar eclipse, right? So for me, and if you notice in one of my videos, and I did a video called First High, and I actually illustrated that. And you can see the black hole sun in the background of that video. For those who haven't checked it out, it's on YouTube. It's called First High, and I was talking about this years ago. Before I did the reel, I was already ready for it. So, I understood that there was another sun in the sky, which was causing everything to spin. So, yeah, that's what I think. Spiritually, though, anytime you're looking into the sunlight, it's directly triggering the pineal gland and decalcifying the pineal gland. So if you were grounded during that experience, you level up big time spiritually, as far as your awakening your consciousness. You're getting the download directly, So for us, children of the sun, is very, very beneficial for us to experience that, and without the glasses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've heard people say this, and I'm just curious what your take is. I've heard some people say that the sun that we're used to seeing is a black hole. What's your
Mhm.
thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think that we're actually looking at the projection of what the sun gives off, because you have sunlight and then you have daylight, and people don't understand the difference. You see, we saw sunlight for the first time from the black hole sun. We've been looking at daylight regularly. Daylight is when the ions of the sky are lit up because of the electromagnetic energy. We have gases in the sky that light up when magnetism is present, and these ions glow. That's what you experience when you see a sunrise and a sunset, but the sun is below ground, but the sky is still lit up. That's daylight. Now, when the sun actually comes up and you're looking directly at the sun, that's sunlight. So, understanding the difference between those two is also crucial. So that's what we were looking at when we're looking at the eclipse. We're already looking at daylight. And then when you see the black sun come into play, now we're looking directly at sunlight. So, and you can test this out. This is why light can bend in on neon signs and things of that nature, because you're using magnetism to make the light bend. The ions and the gases automatically are drawn to the magnetism. You see, you can test this out on smaller scales. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Similar to the Tesla coil experiments. It gets close enough to energy, it glows.
Yes. And that's what
Gotcha.
you're seeing in the sky.
Okay. So I guess I'll finally get to the part people might be a bit more interested in. Let's talk about your music. How did you end up getting into music?
I've been doing music since I was like in the 4th grade. Yeah, so I started playing several instruments in grade school, and by the time I was in high school, I was playing about 5 instruments. I became masterful in the drums, so I'm a drum set player. Like, you can literally sit me on any drum set, just start playing the song, and I can go. I can play by ear. I can also read music. Um, you give me music notes, you give me a score, just play the first note, and I can sing the whole song straight through. I was the kid that was in all the music classes, the chorus classes, the band classes, jazz band, concert band, marching band, traveling. I went to Berkeley School of Music for different things. So I did a lot of music endeavors over the course of my years. My minor in college was music as well. I majored in biomed. And the music kind of took over while I was in college, and I left college to pursue music full time. So I've been doing this pretty much my whole life. Before I came into Kemetic spirituality, I was doing music. So before anything, I'm an artist. before anything. So, that's something that I'll always be doing, no matter what. No matter who I'm around, no matter what stage of life, I'll be creating music. I've had a studio in my home um, since I was a teenager. My first college dorm room, I turned it into a studio. I started working for Alicia Keys early on, and at the Oven Studios here in Glen Cove, New York. They found me at Guitar Center. I was working there to learn how to use Pro Tools, and I'm self taught. So her manager came in there, found me, and then from there, I just started making my connections, going in the streets and hustling and grinding. Got me a little camera, was getting backstage at different events and stuff like that, networking. My parents didn't approve of it when I was younger. We was in the church, so I was pretty much out there on my own learning it, you know what I'm saying, and just paying my dues. So that's pretty much how I got here. Everything's been independent, that you can see. Never had no label or even a manager for the most part. It's just I got to where I am strictly off of just talent, bars, and perseverance. Just working hard and the love of the game. You know what I'm saying? So that's what it's been for me.
Okay. Who's been some of your favorite artists?
Oh man. Okay, so I'm very eclectic. So I don't just listen to hip hop. Most people would be surprised. Um, you know, um, right now, I would say one of my favorite artists is a musical. I would say a jazz Spanish artist by the name of Francisco Cespedes. Um, he's super dope to me. He has an album called Vida Loca, which is my favorite album. I probably play that over and over and over. So as far as eclectic, other than that, it was that growing up, I listened to also some rock and roll. I would listen to like Pearl Jam, Nirvana, System of a Down. Um, as an instrument and a drummer, I listen to things that people normally wouldn't listen to and hear things that people don't actually hear. Michael Jackson, of course, Prince, the regulars, that everybody listens to, of course, but those are tucked away. Those are the obvious, right? So I'll delve into some of the stuff that people might not know. Of course, Stevie Wonder. Um, who else would I say is on top? Oh, Brandy. As far as R&B, Brandy to me, um, I always told whoever I was with, if I ever met Brandy, then I need a pass. Um, Brandy to me is just, the goddess of R&B, as far as her vocal package and her range. Um, a lot of gospel too. I used to listen to Karen Clark sisters, Karen Clark, um, Danny Eason. These were choirs that were coming up. Hezekiah Walker. These were choirs that were coming up. I used to sing in choirs too, and we would travel and see each other in Brooklyn and things of that nature. So I've been heavy into music. Like the list goes on and on and on. As far as hip hop, it would have to be Prodigy. Um, when I'm early on, it was Vast Air. Um, a lot of the underground artists uh, that were making their mark. Um, Breeze Ever Flowing. Um, Artists that people probably don't even know exist. Uh, Common. When I started to get more serious about it, that's when I delved into
Yeah.
the
I could hear the comment in the way that you rap.
yeah Common, Nas, uh, Talib, Most Def for sure, Black Thought. Um, as far as hip hop, I like people that sound like they talking to you, but their voice is still melodic. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't go full fledged onto the melody when it comes to hip hop, even though I do like creating those songs. Those songs stream the most probably for mine. People love when I do the melodies, but um, I like rapping. I'm a rapper's rapper. You know what I'm saying? Like I like MCs. I didn't get into, and people probably be surprised. I didn't get into the early hip hop, like the KRSs and stuff like that. I really
Mhm.
didn't. I got into that later when I started moving around with these guys, because I wasn't even allowed to listen to that type of music. My first really hip hop song that I really rocked with was Onyx, um, Slam. I was a young boy, what I'm saying, rambunctious and just wanted to go out there and get crazy. So Slam, Sticky Fingers, what I'm saying? Like every kid in my school, knew that verse, what I'm saying? God saying, I hope that you die, stick finger. Like it
Yeah.
was that, you know what I'm saying? Like Food Schnickens, uh Rex and Effect, really big on Fuji's, Busta Rhymes, you know what I'm saying? Fuji's was major, Lauryn Hill.
Yeah. Lauren,
Yeah.
one of my favorites.
Oh man, like yeah, like when the Fugees came out, it was a rap. Like, when I first heard Fuji live, like I was done. Like I remember it's just seeing it on the big screen, like you're bringing back memories right now. I just remember seeing it on the screen and how it impacted me watching Fuji live and watching the dance that Praz was doing, and I was just like, I felt it in my soul, like, oh man, like, you know what I mean? That took me somewhere. So, yeah, man, I'm pretty eclectic. Che Carrera, Fela, all that, Sun Ra. Yeah.
So you also mentioned that you got into acting a bit.
Yeah.
Um, I was hearing someone talk about, I want to say I was listening to Bobby Hemmett a few weeks back.
Uh-huh.
And he mentioned how Aleister Crowley took a play or a drama from ancient Kemet and would use it, and it would bring people into altered states of consciousness, and they banned him from doing it in public.
Mm.
So I'm curious, do you know of any of the metaphysical properties or principles associated with drama, with acting, with movies, things like that?
Well, I will say, I did some acting early on in high school. And one of the things uh, that I just had my first acting role last year, my first professional one, last year in Nias. That's on Amazon Prime, I believe, right now still, and Tubi and all that good stuff. You can stream it. But in any case, I will say when you take on certain roles, you're literally allowing your body to be a medium for that energy, that specific frequency. You find a lot of, and you can look up this in history. A lot of actors have a hard time debriefing from their roles after they take on these roles, um,
Yeah.
because you're essentially becoming that. You can set your mind to be anything and anything that you want to be, especially like when you can actually see that emotion. You can take on that energy. It's like any successor. We can't have a Michael Jordan without a Dr. J, a Kobe without a Michael Jordan. Like when you see a successor, you can literally mimic those movements until it becomes a part of you. It's not hard to do. We as people can mimic people very easily, the same way animals mimic other animals. Like I said, people, children will do as you do, not necessarily as you say. So when we're seeing it, we can mimic that. If we see that, okay, we look like this person, our mannerisms, somebody has tasked us and say, hey, you look like this person and you could play this person very well. Here, say these lines. You realize your voice fluctuates the same. You can rap like somebody. You realize, you sing the way somebody, your voice is the same octave as somebody else. You can sing like somebody, is that's what we do. So when we take it on, it's not easy to debrief and put it down. Like I said, some of the hardest things to do is cutting things off that no longer serve you. So yes, absolutely. Any type of acting role, will do something to your spirit. It will affect you. You're literally invoking that energy. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's going to affect you in some way, shape, form, or fashion. So I see how people can become hypnotized and become, a part of that and attached to it in a way that can affect them ultimately, whether it be positively or negatively. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I remember recently, I want to say Taraji P. Henson was talking about how that's how she acts, is that she'll take some time apart and she'll just get into the energy of the role she's supposed to play until she becomes that character.
Yes. Yes. And in religion, a lot of these things are spookism, but really it's just alchemy. It's just us, playing around with our spiritual gifts as the deities of the planet. These are things that we can do, and we're allowed to play with light energies and dark energies, as long as it's within Ma'at. A lot of people don't, excuse me, respect the art of things, and they take things to another level, but we allow our oppressors to get away with it all the time. We allow, what's his name, Stephen King, to write horror films, but we don't look at him, you know, like he's evil. We say he's a genius, right? And a lot of times we have to learn how to do that things and to differentiate between the two. Like children can do it very easily. It's the adults that I'm concerned with. You know what I'm saying? Children can watch a cartoon and watch, Bugs Bunny bash people over the head and different things going on, but they don't necessarily go and do that when they go to school. You know what I'm saying? They could differentiate between what's real and what's not, and
Yeah.
what's art and what's not. So we need to keep it there. Also in hip hop too. I'm not so big on, trying to downplay people because they're making negative songs or songs that are negative per se. For some people that's their therapy. I'd rather them do that than to go and shoot someone. I'd rather them do that. Create a record. I understand as an artist how therapeutic it can be sometimes. You know what I'm saying? To let it out on record versus actually committing the act. And
Kind of
respect.
reminds me of the quote that I heard. I think it was Eazy-E from Straight Outta Compton, where he said, "You want to change?" It's like, my lyrics are a reflection of the community. If you want to change my lyrics, change my community.
Absolutely, and I agree with that. I agree with that 150%. As my experiences changed and the life that I was living changed, my lyrics began to change. Different things that I would normally say, I feel conflicted by saying it. You know what I'm saying? In this stage of my life. But had I not gone through those experiences, I'd still be there. So, I'm never too far removed where I don't understand what someone is going through and why they're saying what they're saying. Everybody has their growth, epoch as to where they're going to be. And sometimes you got to meet people where they're at. In most cases, you're going to have to do that. They're either going to be higher than you or they're going to be lower than you or on the same playing field, like I said. And I keep all that energy around me to keep me grounded. That's how you go so far out of here to where you're no longer respected anymore. When people say, you forgot where you came from, yeah, you can very easily do that. You know what I'm saying? Now, it might help you out as far as your welfare. You get around some good folks, you might come up financially and things of that nature, but you've lost your soul in being able to connect with people. You see, you've lost your ability to do what's important, which is to help to connect. And I think that is very, very crucial. A lot of times, we only want to get around people that are like us, and that helps us that makes us forget what our responsibility is. Had I not seen someone who was on a level spiritually higher than myself, and that person be willing to speak to me and give me gems, I wouldn't be where I am. What if that person just looked at me like, you're not on my level? You know what I'm saying? And kept it pushing. Then I wouldn't want to elevate spiritually, because it's like, I don't want to be that. I have family members and friends, and I also want them to level up too. I want to be able to share my knowledge. I want them to be able to relate to what's going on and be the best example of this as I can possibly be. You see? So
Yeah.
there's
So
that.
I got one more major topic before we end up closing out for today. This is backtracking a bit to the Netaru topic.
Mhm.
I've often described the Kemetic spiritual science pretty much the same as recipes in a cooking book, or like chemistry,
Yeah.
where you're just looking at forces that attract and repel, and you're learning how to mix what with what to get an intended outcome.
Yes.
And I've often heard it said that the concept of alchemy actually originates from Kemet, the
Yes.
process of transmuting and transforming things, taking one thing and bringing it into another. Inner alchemy is one of your specialties. Could you talk about inner alchemy for a bit?
Yeah. So when we do the opening of the way, one of the things that we do is that we're invoking different energies to come into our life and to help us at the task that we're about to take on. So understanding the different netaru will help you to know which aspect of nature or science you want to invoke into you and empower. So you'll hear us say Anetadak in bedhet, Anetadak asar, right? Or Anetadak hapi. If I'm doing a baptism on the Nile River, I'm going to want to invoke hapi,
Copy.
right? If I need more love in my life, Anetadak in hetheru,
Yeah.
if I need more of that energy, sisterly love in bedhet and netadak, there's all different ones that you can invoke, right? So the universe tends to work in binary code, but when you add a third, I find for some reason energy begins to flow. When you do it in twos or do it in pairs, the energy exists, but it's rotating. When you put a third in there, asar, aset, heru, right? Now it begins to move. It's energy in motion. So alchemy is kind of the same way. You're taking a composite of different natural elements or things of that nature, and you're creating a chemical bond inwardly. So there are certain aspects of Netaru that are within the body. The same things that we find in the universe flow through our veins. If we can understand that, now anything that we do is no longer impossible because we can tap in to the actual divine forces of the entire universe. So, how could you lose if you know how to trigger and activate these Netaru? If you know how to call on them by their original frequency, right? Everything's about frequency. It's not just the energy, it's what frequency is that energy on. You could be on one channel and then you just flip the dial just a bit, you're on a whole different station, a whole different type of music, a whole different sound, right? So understanding how to vibrate on that frequency is very, very important. What is the frequency of the planet? So if we want to be one with the planet, you got to know what frequency that is, so that now you can find the Tibet singing bowl that corresponds to that frequency, so you can vibrate in on that frequency, right? During COVID, the planet was adjusting, things were happening. You may want to get in tune with the planet because nature wasn't dying, only the people were. So if you vibrate more like nature, you didn't see the animals catching COVID and falling out. Springtime came, and squirrels were still being birthed, and dogs and cats and everything tweet 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 like it normally was. So maybe
Yeah.
we should start vibrating like them and get more in tune with them. Because the vaccines ain't working. Clearly we're off on a different wavelength here. So understanding that is important. The knowledge of what frequency things are vibrating on, so you can match those frequencies and invoke those frequencies. You can do it through your voice. You can do it through playing instruments, listening to different types of music, or sometimes just connecting with individuals and touching them because they vibrate on that frequency. You see? So there's all different ways to do it, but essentially, like I said, it's knowledge of self. Is to each his or her own. You have to figure out where you're at, what wavelength that you're on, so that you can know where you need to go. And that's what we do as Kemetic priests, is to help to be a guide, to help be able to diagnose some of that in individual people and say, hey, this might work for you, right? You're going to have to meet it halfway, right? Faith without works is dead. You're going to have to meet it halfway, but it might work for you. There's no end solution or end all for everybody. It's levels to all this, and everybody has to find their way, but there are guides that can help you, that you could potentially match. DNA is important with that aspect, so you can see, okay, the people of Aswan, my tribe, they might have ate certain things. You know what I'm saying? Maybe if I tap into that, that'll help me to vibrate on that. If they were pyramid builders, maybe it will help my ability to be able to do certain things like that and see that. How can we can do that? My mathematical aspect of the brain, right? Geometrical aspect of the brain.
Yeah.
So you know what I
Learning
mean?
to embody the energy you need.
Exactly.
That whole I am concept.
I am that I am, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have to throw your Bibles away. I tell people you don't have to throw your Bibles away. There's knowledge in there too, But ultimately, that's that's the first tier. That's the breadcrumbs, and you want to find your way back. To find the creators of that, right?
Yeah. And then there's those of us engaging today that have uncovered some stuff that the ancients might not have knew. So
Never
there's
knew.
scripture being written today that goes highly unrecognized.
Absolutely. You are a walking scripture. You've experienced some things in your life nobody has experienced, and you're going to render them differently. You're a one-to-one. There's no fingerprint like yours. Nobody can put you in a box and say that, oh, you're this. You can't tell me what I am. I'm a one-to-one, and so are you. Right? So how could you categorize anybody? Your knowledge is going to be different from anybody else's unless you choose to follow something else and regurgitate it. Yours is going to be a perspective that only you have.
Yeah. So we're getting ready to wrap up. Where are some places that people can connect with you and find some of your resources? You got some books out, some music.
Absolutely. Right now on Instagram, my campaign is pretty heavy on there. I'm coming back to YouTube for the month of May, so expect that. Jamaar Milton on Instagram is at Jamaar Jamaar. On YouTube, you can simply just search for Jamaar Milton Jamaar Milton. My music is on all streaming platforms. If you're on Tidal, Amazon, Pandora, whatever you listen to, Spotify, just type in Jamaar Milton, same thing, Jamaar Milton, and you'll be able to connect with me. My email address for bookings is jamarmilton@gmail. I'm pretty easy to find. My name is pretty original, so it's not hard to find me, but just make sure you put the Milton on the end so that you can catch me, because there's other Jamars out there, but there's only one Jamaar Milton.
Yeah. And your book?
My book, you can actually find that if you just Google me and you want a copy of it. It's an ebook. So if you want to get that, The Divine Nine, and this will teach you different things, how to transpose and alchemize negative energy into positive energy. So the things that we were just talking about, how to transpose different emotions and different things that you might be feeling, hate, envy, whatever it is, all the different negative emotions that you have, and you're maybe having difficulty taking those emotions and using them in your favor instead of it being a detriment to you and it running you. You begin to run those emotions and channel them in such a way. So if you'd like a copy of that book, all you have to do is email me and I'll send you the ebook.
That's great. So one last thing I'd like to ask for you. Could you kind of release a blessing for the audience, a Hesse or anything like that?
Absolutely. May the divine force in me be the divine force in you, and may you manifest every heart's desire, love, light, peace, and blessings. Ashe and peace.
Ashe. Again, brother, thank you, Himnetter, Jabari Milton, for joining me today. It's been great having you. You dropped a lot of beautiful knowledge. People are going to have to listen to this one a few times to get what you were really trying to give out.
Absolutely.
So thank you again for joining me. So y'all, that concludes this episode of The Inner. Until next time, y'all be blessed.